welcome to the world of gastropods. Well, you've probably heard of these slow and slimy animals before, like the snails and slugs. Despite their reputation, they are actually fascinating creatures. Gastropods belong to the phylum Mollusca and are one of the most diverse groups in the animal kingdom. Can you believe there are over 65,000 species who belong here? Quite fascinating if you ask me. So now that we know a bit about what gastropods are, let's meet the first species, a traveler you might commonly find right in your garden.
Did you know that Korean skincare products that you most likely use contain snail mucus? Makes you kind of think of what other weird stuff they put in your skincare, right? When we think of snails, most of us picture that slow-moving creature leaving behind a trail of slime. Except that slime is actually one of the most valuable natural substances in skincare and medicine. Meet the Cornu aspersum, or the common garden snail in English. These snails produce a kind of mucus called snail secretion filtrate, or SSF in short, which is discovered to be rich in proteins, antioxidants, collagen, elastin, and glycolic acid. These substances help in hydrating the skin, reducing the appearance of fine lines, and speeding up wound healing. But the benefits don't actually stop there. It gets even better. The snail mucus also has antimicrobial properties, which help fight bacteria and also protect skin cells from damage. Although aside from skincare benefits, they also help native environments as they act as decomposers, improve soil quality, and serve as a food source for animals, fulfilling the biodiversity's food chain. However, outside their native environments, they tend to be more invasive than helpful. So how on earth did we discover and reach the conclusion that snail gunk is good for us? These snails originally were native to the Mediterranean region, where they resided in moist environments. But over time, they were spread across the world through human means. But why? Back in the 1980s, workers on snail farms in Chile noticed that their hands were unusually soft compared to other workers of different trades. They credited to snails and got it right. Today, it's a big business trade. The snail mucus market is expected to grow to $770 million by 2025. So now let's answer the question, does this harm the snail? Well, machines were created to stimulate snails into producing slime passively as to not harm them, but some farms still kill the snails with highly concentrated solutions of ozonated water, poking, dunking in salt, stressing the snails just to extract more mucus. Afterwards, we harvest their meat for gourmet dishes, shells for cosmetic products, and eggs for snail caviar. Regardless, snails are a vital source of materials for our convenience of our daily lives. So the next time you see a snail slowly gliding across a leaf and you think to yourself, wow, that's kind of gross, remember that thing is a natural healer, providing us with renewable sources of medicine and skincare.
Next species I will be talking about even made it into a famous K-drama. If you've watched When Life Gives You Tangerines, you've probably heard about this, the abalones. Specifically, I'll be giving the spotlight on Haliotis asinina, commonly known as the donkey's ear abalones. Here in the Philippines, it's also called sobra sobra in Ilonggo and lapas in Cebuano. You might be wondering, how did it get its odd name? Well, it's primarily because of its elongated and curved flat-shaped shell that resembles a donkey's ear. Although its shell is shiny and beautiful due to its iridescent mother of pearl lining, the unique shape isn't just for looks. It helps the abalones handle powerful waves and currents in their shallow, exposed coastal reef habitat. It also has several small holes around the edges, which helps with passing respiratory water currents, releasing eggs, and getting rid of waste. Like other gastropods, they also have a large muscular foot that acts like a suction cup so it can remain firmly attached to rocky substrates even while moving and feeding. But wait, there's more. The abalones turn into a little moving reef since the outside of its shell often becomes home to other marine organisms like algae, barnacles, and even small bivalves. Similarly to mussels and oysters, abalones can also produce their own intensely colored pearls, although quite rare for wild natural abalones. Donkey's ear abalones are mostly found across tropical and subtropical waters of the western Indo-Pacific, which includes countries like Japan to the Andaman Islands and all the way down to the Philippines, Indonesia, and Fiji. They prefer shallow rocky reefs and coral rubble, mostly hiding under rocks and coral formations. Haliotis asinina play an important role in the food web since they act as grazers, which influence the balance of algal populations and also act as a food source for other marine animals. They primarily feed on red algae such as the Laurentia and Hypnea, and unfortunately, they are at risk of predation from crabs, fish, and sea otters and rays in their adult life. Abalones matter quite a lot for humans since we use nearly every part of it. Their meat is known as a culinary delicacy due to its extremely rich, flavorful taste and high nutritional value. We also use their shells and pearls as they serve as ornamental materials. They even support local fisheries in the Philippines as we are one of the major producers of this. Now, we may not always see Haliotis asinina as much as other gastropods like garden snails, but we can hopefully appreciate its vital role in marine ecosystems and its support for human livelihood.
Next up, the great Taylor Swift. Just kidding. But you know how she's famous and her songs are often acknowledged to be used as a model for other songwriters? What if I told you that there was a Taylor Swift status for snails? Yes, I'm talking about the great pond snail, scientifically named Limnaea stagnalis. This mollusk is great not just in size compared to other garden snails, but great in reputation, as its anatomy, ecology, and nervous system have been studied extensively, that it is famous, well known, and serves as a model for neuroscience studies. But you know what's interesting to me? The fact that its size depends on the volume of water. Larger ones are found in larger ponds. Their growth relies on the size of their environment, but also on water quality, pH level, and alkalinity, which are essential to systems and functions such as their diet, shell formation, and reproductive cycles. Another interesting feature is that they are pulmonates. It doesn't just inhale or exhale oxygen from the water, but by using its lungs to breathe, it moves frequently to the surface to inhale air. They're not just aquatic, but they prefer calm, stagnant, or slow-moving waters that are rich in vegetation, chalk, and limestone. Geographically, Limnaea stagnalis is found across North America, Europe, and parts of Australia and Asia. Who said being picky was a bad thing? Their habitat allows them to feed and graze on algae and decaying plant matter, acting as the pond's katulong or janitor. In fact, freshwater snails play a vital role in aquatic ecosystems. They keep things clean and transfer energy, metals, nutrients, and other materials through the food web. They're also an only buffet for crayfish, turtles, fish, and waterfowl. And who doesn't love a buffet? On a more serious note, besides being beneficial for other sea creatures, Limnaea stagnalis carries a high reputation for its benefit on human science and research studies. It's a model organism in developmental biology and neurophysiology. It can help connect the gap in research between basic biological processes and complex human conditions. In particular, it can aid in the formation of translational medicine like learning and memory, and help us better understand neurodegenerative diseases. In particular, it has already been used to investigate disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Even though they are small, they serve as tiny test subjects that are easy to observe, helping us unravel different complexities about the human brain, how the human brain functions, and how the human brain dysfunctions.
Moving on, the next that we'll be sharing is just as interesting as what we've previously discussed. You may be a little bit familiar, maybe because you have encountered or seen them before. So, I introduce to you the Roseria slaive, commonly known as the marsh slug, brown slug, or meadow slug. You can think of a slug as a snail without a shell. They may look a little different, but they are closely related. Let me share some interesting facts about slugs. First, did you know that slugs can survive in both natural and artificial environments as long as it's moist? They avoid dryness because it limits their movement and can even be fatal. Second, slugs are hermaphroditic, meaning they possess both and female reproductive organs. An individual may start as male, then become both male and female, and later function only as female. And finally, there's something unique about their appearance, a fingerprint-like pattern on their mantle. The marsh slug's short mantle covering the upper surface of its head shows fine concentric furrows unlike most slugs that have smooth mantles. Marsh slugs are widely distributed across North America, Europe, and Asia, particularly in Australia, New Zealand, India, Nepal, and the Philippines. Just like all animals, slugs play an important role in the food web. They act as decomposers and consumers but can also become horticultural and agricultural pests and host to parasites. As decomposers, they feed on decaying plants and animals, returning the nutrients to the soil. When these aren't available, they eat living plants, leaves, stems, seedlings, and roots, making them both beneficial and harmful. As pests, slugs damage crops and seedlings, affecting the farmers' livelihoods, especially those relying on agriculture. As parasite hosts, they can carry nematodes, which can transmit the rat lungworm disease, which may infect humans who consume raw or contaminated slugs. Though this disease is rarely fatal and most recover, it can also cause meningitis. In summary, the Rosea's laive may be small and easy to overlook, but it plays an important role in the nature, from recycling nutrients to showing how even simple organisms affect ecosystems and human life. The marsh slugs proves that every creature, no matter how big or tiny they are, has a purpose in maintaining homeostasis and balance in life.
Have you ever seen a bunny underwater? Well, meet the Jorna parva, better known as the sea bunny. This isn't your typical bunny, it's actually a type of sea slug, a shellless mollusk in the family Discodoridae. It was first discovered by a Japanese scientist named Baba back in 1938. Now, why does this little creature look so irresistibly cute? Its body is covered with tiny rod-like structures called caryophyllidia, which gives it that fuzzy fur-like look. But don't be fooled, it's not fur. Those are sensory organs that help it feel and detect its surroundings. Think of them as underwater whiskers. And those black and white bunny ears? Those are rhinopores, special organs that detect chemical scents in the water. Since sea bunnies don't have eyes, they use these to find food and mates. The fuzzy texture of the rhinopores actually increases their surface area, making them super sensitive scent detectors. On their back, you'll spot a tuft of feathery gills, which they use to breathe. Between their ears and their tail, which is the feathery gills, kind of, the sea bunny really looks like a tiny underwater rabbit. Furthermore, sea bunnies love warm tropical waters. You can find them near the coasts of Japan, Indonesia, the Philippines, Australia, and even South Africa. They prefer shallow coral reefs where there are plenty of sea sponges, which is their favorite food. But don't let their cuteness fool you, because they're carnivores. Sea bunnies snack on toxic sea sponges, small algae, and sometimes other sea slugs. What's even cooler is that they absorb toxins from their sponge meals and store them in their own bodies. That means if a crab or a cone snail tries to eat them, they'll probably regret it. By grazing on algae and sponges, sea bunnies also keep coral reefs healthy. They control algal health and recycle nutrients, which plays an important role in the underwater food web. However, even with their built-in defense system, they're not completely safe. Some predators, like cone snails, crabs, sea hares, and even other nudibranchs, can still eat them, which keep the ocean ecosystem in balance. Okay, now here's where things get really interesting. Sea bunnies became internet famous a few years ago because of their adorable, fluffy looks. But beyond the viral videos, scientists found something amazing. The toxins they absorb from sponges contain compounds that can fight cancer cells in humans. These compounds show promising effects against colon, lung, and breast cancer cell lines. Who knew something so small could hold such big medical potential? But sadly, their world is under threat, and it's kind of our fault. Climate change, pollution, and habitat destruction are damaging coral reefs, their homes and food sources. If we lose these delicate ecosystems, we lose creatures like the sea bunny too. So let's remember to do our part. Now that we've learned about gastropods, so what? The Filipino phrase small but terrible can sum up the importance of gastropods, as they are tiny, yes, but they play a significant role in our lives. They are a reminder that we should not overlook nor underestimate small creatures, as they are key players in science, research, food systems, and even human health. So, stay curious.